This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Great Film Challenge. I, of course, am your host, Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself, and here with me again is my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how are we doing today, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, doing well. I realized I played that cue for you. Is that the first time you've ever heard that? That little
I
Flying
it
Cow
might have
intro?
it might have been.
It might have been. What do you think about that?
It's amazing.
I'm glad you think so. It's been in front of all of these episodes. I've just never actually played it live because we're kind of doing a little something different with our recording setup than we used to.
Yes.
It's easier, is what it is. But we are here today talking about another movie. Aaron decided to shake things up a little bit, and we spun the unseen wheel twice in a row, folks. He's bending all the rules. Look at this rule breaker over here.
I'm a good
Aaron,
one.
that's right. He's a rebel. Um, but yes, so we decided to spin the unseen wheel one more time. Just give that thing a good old spin. And what did we land on it, Aaron?
Amelie.
Amelie. That's right. We landed on the film Amelie from 2001. And this film, like I said before, this is one of those that I have not seen or had not seen before. So, but it was a film that I had wanted to see and I'd kind of watched around it. But for one reason or another, I just never actually got to the film.
Yeah.
But just to kind of give you some of the highlights, like I said, it's from 2001. It's directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and stars Audrey Tautou, Matthew Kosovitz, Rufus. He's just billed as Rufus. And let's see. Where's the one guy? There's a guy that he works with a lot. Oh, okay. Dominique Pignon is in a good number of his
Oh, that
movies.
guy.
But yeah, like I said, I had previously a few years ago, I did a 50 film challenge and I was challenged to watch a bunch of different films, and two of them were two of Jeanot's other at least French hits. I believe it's Delicatessen and what's the other one called? It is something about children. I'm gonna look it up real fast.
Oh, I think
The City of Lost Children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, what?
Yeah,
And then I remembered the
Delicatessen
name.
and The City of Lost Children. I will say I've seen another one of his films, Alien Resurrection, which I did not enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I might want to rewatch it. After watching more of Jeannot's work, I might get it a little bit more. But when I watched it the first time, it was just a little gross to me. I'll just say that. Like
Uh-huh.
and then it was also just kind of odd and peculiar. But having watched a few more of Jeannot's films, like that's kind of his. He always has a bit of heightened realism
Yeah.
to his films. The other two, I would say, are kind of like dark fairy tales.
Uh-huh.
Like, Delicatessen is basically about, um a small little village that's like isolated, and like the people in charge are like they're super well fed, but like the people down at the bottom like barely scrape by, and I think there's an aspect of cannibalism to it. Like it's just bizarre. And then there's also like kidnapping in the city of lost children. Like there's a darkness that kind of, but at the same time fantastical. Like there's a fantastical, even like lightness, even though the subject matter is pretty dark and twisted.
Yeah.
So when we get into Amelie, I will say, number one, this is the first of his films that definitely feels like it's based in a reality that looks familiar.
Yes.
Because his other ones are kind of post-apocalyptic kind of feeling. They feel like in either a dark timeline or a dark future kind of
Yes.
thing, whereas this one, there's still an aspect of there's some depressing things going on because Amelie is a child of parents that don't really seem to understand her. Her father never touches her except when he's giving her a physical exam, which is highly unethical. You shouldn't be your own child's doctor. That's just
Yeah.
a really bad idea. But because he only touches her during these exams, she gets excited when he touches her, which makes him think that she's got a heart defect.
Yep.
And so she ends up extremely sheltered because they don't want to risk her health. And it's just this weird kind of thing. There's Janot kind of has this way of filming, especially interiors, where everything has this kind of green tint
I liked that.
to it. Yeah. But even within that, like there's very vibrant colors. Like, I mean, Audrey Tautou is a very pale woman, but she wears very like bright colors. Her hair is, just this it's black, like just
Yeah.
which really contrasts with her skin. And she's always like, her lipstick is always like, eye-poppingly red. So there's he really plays around with visuals and color and things like that. But then you're also getting these Amelie's a very quirky character. She sees the death of Princess Di. So the story is taking place in 97.
Yep.
And she decides little by little to try to affect people's lives, specifically people who are, not being able to live their fullest lives.
Yeah.
Trying to do nice things for people so that they can live better, more fulfilled lives. She tries to convince her father to go outside and go travel.
Yes.
And he hasn't left the house since her mother died. She takes to a one-armed grocer who's basically being bullied by his boss. But actually seems more skilled at his job than his boss is.
Yeah.
And then there's the guy whose stuff she finds, and she tracks him down, his childhood stuff, and gets it back to him, and it ends up really tries to put various people together, and just all this kind of stuff. So I've talked all about this, and I realized that I have not asked you the most important question. You hadn't seen this film before we watched it.
Yeah.
Did you know anything about this film?
No.
Had you heard of it? No. Okay. I
don't know a lot of foreign films.
Sure. And we're going to be watching a few for this.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I honestly was really excited how many were on this list. But I will say in America, this is strictly just known as Amelie.
Yeah.
But the French title is Le Fabuleux Destin d'Amélie Poulain, which is, I think, basically translated the Fabulous Destinations or Destiny. I think it's Destiny. Fabulous Destiny of Amélie Poulain.
Oh, okay.
I mean, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, because I haven't studied French since high school, which was quite a while ago. Yeah. So you knew nothing about this going in.
No.
What were your basic thoughts about this film?
Going in or just overall?
Well, I mean, yeah, what were like your thoughts going in, and then give us what you thought about it.
Going in, I was excited to watch another foreign movie because the last one we watched, Le Gone, was amazing. I really liked that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say there are a lot of great foreign films out there.
Oh yeah,
but don't make the mistake of thinking that just because it's a foreign film, it's good. There are definitely, just like over here, there are bad ones. But especially the ones that we get often are some of the better ones. There are definite exceptions to that. Even ones that people think are great are like, no, that's actually not as good as you thought it was. But yeah, this is definitely a good one. I will say because I asked you at the end of this film, because we watched this one together last night, and wait, was it last night? Yeah, it was last night. But we watched this one together, and I will say I was a little worried because the last film that we watched, Groundhog Day, you were not a big fan of big parts of it because of the romantic comedy aspect, the romantic story aspect. And so when you told me, because there's definitely a romance going through this one, it's not a traditional romance, which might be where the difference was. But when you said that you really I was afraid. So when you said that you really enjoyed this one, I was surprised. but just talk about what was it about this film that helped you get past the romantic aspect of it, or was this one presented in a way that you enjoyed?
I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I would say that because it was different,
sure,
it was much more tolerable, and it almost felt like it actually had a point relating to the movie, what it was trying to say.
I will say that
I think it
also related to it in Groundhog Day, because that's part of the impetus for him to want to be a better person.
Yeah.
But I mean, I kind of get what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think it's justified in both. But yeah.
I'm not gonna be like, oh, it was a super important part of the plot.
And
but the little bit that it was there, and especially that it was at the end, I think it did serve some little bit of purpose. But outside of that, I really liked it because we just got to see everything from a very like different and interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Through Amelie.
Yeah.
But also all these different things that she did, and like places it takes us throughout the movie.
Right.
And I really like that.
Yeah, I will say this film is kind of episodic
Yeah.
in that it takes us through a series of events. Some of them kind of link together and some of them kind of do stretch out and happen throughout. But like there are definitely like the whole thing with the guy where she found his his childhood stuff in her apartment and she sought him out. Like that was number one, it was kind of the inciting incident to her then, you know, reaching out to all of the other people that she helped.
Yeah.
But that kind of happened and then that part was over. You know, and there are other bits that happen and are over. But then there are others, like we said with her dad, where she keeps you know, basically at one point she steals one of her father's garden gnomes and has I guess either a woman that travels a lot or a travel agent. I couldn't tell exactly who she was, but basically this woman took photos around the world with this gnome to basically make it look like and then she sent them to her dad to make it look like this gnome went on a trip and was sending her dad.
I loved that.
It was it's so quirky and weird, but also kind of brilliant and funny and sweet. And I mean, that's kind of the thing that I love about this movie is that it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's, you know, there are parts that are kind of heartbreaking, that are kind of sad, and, you know, also kind of things that are a little twisted, like the whole thing with the couple that she sets up at the cafe that she works at, because there's a guy who is basically just an asshole.
Yeah.
Who is obsessed with one of the servers there. And apparently they went out once. Nothing really happened. And he just won't leave her alone. And he comes to the cafe every single day.
Yeah.
And it drives all of them crazy. And so she just hears, I guess it's the owner, or at least the woman that's in charge.
Yeah.
Mentioning how, you know, often when people spend a lot of time together, relationships just form. She was like, it's the easiest thing in the world. You make one of them think that the other one likes them, and then all of a sudden, romance.
Yep.
You know? And so she decides to basically convince this guy that one of the woman at the cigarette stand, basically, which is inside the cafe. It's so funny talking about this now. I mean, this was filmed in the 90s when smoking was still allowed in restaurants and, you know, in you know, public and stuff like that. So it's weird looking at it now because it's like they were selling cigarettes in the cafe. Yeah, I mean, it's France. Yeah, of course they were. But so she convinces them that the other one likes them.
Yes.
And they end up having a romance. And at first it's kind of sweet and nice. And then eventually dude just ends up showing his true colors and, you know, just gets super jealous of her and all of this kind of stuff. And then again gets jealous of the other woman that he was obsessed with again previously. And it's just like, dude, you just need to be alone until you figure your shit out.
Yeah.
Because you don't really deserve anybody. You're kind of a jerk. Not kind of, you just are a jerk. But, you know, so like I said, there's some weird kind of dark and twisted things, but then there's like, you know, really sweet things. You know, there's the romance that she ends up having with the random guy at the train station who, you know, through several coincidences, she just kind of ends up finding little things out about him, and she just kind of becomes, I'm going to use the word obsessed. In the film, it is depicted, honestly, the way that both of them act towards each other. If they happened in real life, you would want to call the police, because they're both a little bit obsessive and stalkery and things like that
Yeah.
towards each other. In the film, it's depicted as, number one, consensual.
Uh-huh.
They both are into this little game, so that's a different ball game. If you're both into it, whatever. But kind of doing this back and forth, and it's kind of depicted as she is interested in this guy, but she's also because, like we said, she has been kind of isolated for most of her life. So she, there are aspects of this film that are very fantastical, and she's got this very vivid imagination, but that's where she's used to living her life, is in her imagination. So she imagines this whirlwind romance with this guy, but she can't pull the trigger to actually meet him. She keeps setting up times for them to get together, and she ends up just writing him a letter or calling him, or basically just not actually meeting him. And she ends up kind of making friends with this older guy that lives in her building, this character, Rufus, or no, actually that's her father, never mind. But this older character that I believe he's also called Mr. Glass, which is remnant, or do they call him the Glass Man?
Something like that.
Okay, one of those. It made me think of Unbreakable. But either way, they form a connection, and he keeps, in roundabout ways, they keep talking about art, but really he's talking about her.
I was gonna talk about that.
Yeah,
I really liked that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I mean, I will say this film reminds me of a couple of my favorite films from earlier in the year. It feels a little bit like a combination between, there's a film, it's part of a trilogy, the Three Colors trilogy. It's the last one in the trilogy, and it's called Red. It also has this relationship between a woman and this kind of damaged guy who is doing things that he really shouldn't. But they end up forming this connection. There were parts of that, and there's also really interesting color saturation in all three of those. And they're all three about different human connections and things like that. But there were aspects of this movie that reminded me of that. But what this really reminded me of is the main bit in the film Chungking Express, which is a Hong Kong film. Oh, it's so good. And it's basically about this woman who keeps breaking into this guy's apartment. He has recently gotten out of a relationship with this one woman, and he just can't get over it.
Yeah.
And she just keeps breaking into his apartment and basically cleaning it up, making it fresh, and making it nice. And little by little, he doesn't know that she's doing this, but just these little things that she's doing is causing him to kind of slowly come out of this depression that he's in.
Yeah.
And at the same time, she's also kind of imagining this relationship with him, but it's almost best in her imagination.
Yeah.
like she's almost afraid to make it real, kind of thing. And so, like I said, really reminded me of this film. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeannot had seen that film. But yeah, I've talked a lot about this movie. Is there anything else?
I mean,
Because I really loved this film. I honestly, I love the majority of what I've seen from Jeannot. I think if you ever feel like watching a film off of the list, another one of his would be something worth jumping into. But sorry, what would you like to say?
I was really mostly gonna talk about the painter.
The older gentleman that can't has the fragile bones.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so what did you like about him?
Honestly, just what you said.
Yeah, that's okay. I know. I sometimes
I-
when I've seen a movie that I really like, I just kind of go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know more about movies in general.
I mean, I'm also older and I've seen more.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But like I mean, I found their conversations very interesting because I think they both knowingly were talking about her.
Yeah.
But they never specifically talk about her. They're like this girl in this painting, the one that's drinking, the woman that we can't figure out.
Uh-huh.
What's her thing? What's her deal? And of course, Amelie's describing herself, and he's like, well, she should actually, try and meet these people that she's fantasizing about. And she's just like, oh, I don't know, kind of thing. It's just really interesting how they kind of they're coy yet direct.
Yeah, I really liked their conversations and how it
Yeah.
eventually just got to her progressing.
Yeah, and like I said at the end of the film, he does just flat out say, you need to go for this. You need to try.
Yeah.
Which was a progression of their relationship that I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there wasn't anything else that you wanted to talk about, or was there? Grinding those gears. Do you need some oil?
Not really. No, not really anything. I feel
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was just because she was really isolated as a child,
Yeah.
but I think I really like the movie
Sure.
because Amelie does not act or look or any other thing she does. She doesn't really seem like a neurotypical kind of person.
Okay, so you think she's probably neurodivergent kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
mean,
definitely see
yeah,
it. It would make sense.
sure.
And I think that's part of why I like the movie because she acts so differently
Right.
as opposed to other people.
So, would you suggest that people watch this movie
Oh, yeah, for sure.
if they haven't
I
already?
really liked this movie. It was great.
Yeah. All right. I will say, I think that's something that I might ask you from now on. Are there any that we've talked about that you wouldn't suggest people watch?
From what I can remember so far, honestly, no.
Even Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
Because you did like a good bit of it.
Yeah, I did like
Yeah.
most of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was bad or anything, though.
I will
I
say
still enjoyed parts
you
of
might
it.
get hate mail from people not liking Groundhog Day.
That's
That's
their
pretty
fault. It's their
well
opinion.
loved movie.
They decided to form that opinion. That's their fault.
All right. So let us go ahead. I want to let people know you can contact us at the Flying Cow Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can also email at the Flying Cow Pod at gmail.com. Make sure to check all of those things out and everything else that we are putting out. But Aaron, it is time to decide the next film that we are going to be discussing. And we've done 2 films in a row from the unseen list. Do you want to stick with the unseen wheel, or do you want to go for one that you've seen before?
Let's do a scene one.
All right. So we're going to go with one that you have seen before. All right. So are you ready with that wheel?
Yes.
All right. Let's do this.
Okay.
Tick, 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 tick.
Oh, The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight. All right. So we will be back next time talking about The Dark Knight. It's the second one in the trilogy, folks. The Dark Knight, the one with the Joker. So we will be back to talk about that next time. But until that time, moo.